2025, the year that apparently seems to have been absolute hell on earth for everyone who isn't me. Apologies if I sound weird at any point during this video, I am still recovering from the bubonic plague. I can't lie, I had a pretty good year myself, but I have no other wish in my heart than for everyone else on the planet to have a similar experience to me going into 2026. Though the recent news headlines are certainly not helping, praying for all my viewers in Greenland right now. But yeah, what a year for this channel. 2025 was my most successful year on YouTube to date, 3 million views on the hidden lore of the Incredibles. Jesus Christ, thank you so much for that. And even though I'm growing out of and getting tired of making animation related content, I still feel I'm obligated to put out a good few videos before experimenting with some new ideas. Specifically, I am absolutely obligated to continue my series ranking every animated movie that was released in the past year from worst to best, or at the very least the ones that I find notable. As with every previous year, you aren't going to find many bargain bin, low budget movies in here because there's like 20 of those released every year and this video would get extremely bloated very quickly. I'll be honest, 2025 was a pretty dire year for mainstream animated movies. And I do mean on the mainstream side of things. It's not like there weren't any good movies coming out, but there was just a lot of mid and outright bad films contrasted with very few truly exceptional ones. And even then, I didn't really watch that many movies this year due to burnout as well as me just generally being more interested in other things. While I'm gonna try and keep my reviews of all these movies as short as possible, I hope these short reviews can still satisfy you if you were wondering why I skipped reviewing a shitload of movies this year. Look, I would have reviewed K-pop Demon Hunters if I cared that much about it, but you know, good movie though. Maybe one day I'll give some of these movies a more in-depth review, but for now, let's keep things simple. As usual, we will be starting from the worst and then making our way up to the best of the best. Eventually. And also, this will be limited to films that I myself have watched, obviously. So grab a snack and some patience because we're jumping straight into sneaks. I too wish I was doing something else. I've made a vow to not go around reviewing low-effort bargain bin movies because they're usually easy pickings. But of course, Sneaks just had to punch above its weight and release in theaters because f*** my life. Sneaks has the balls to ask the general audience a bold question. What if Toy Story 2 was actually bad? Okay, that was a low blow. Not a single frame of this movie is even remotely inspired. It's a creative black hole that isn't even interesting to analyze in the way a car crash in a school zone is. It's boring bad, and I wouldn't even recommend it if it was the last option you had. Like, at that point, just grab your grandma's copy of A Study in Scarlet and just make a flipbook of a guy blowing his shit smooth off. It would be substantially more entertaining. The only interesting thing about this movie is how shockingly stacked the cast is. Anthony Mackie, Sway Lee, Keith David, Lawrence Fishburne, f***ing Mustard somehow. A huge waste of time for everyone involved, and it seems like the production of the movie was a huge mess as well. Now, most of this is according to what I found on Wikipedia because I genuinely can't be bothered, but apparently Pixar veteran Teddy Newton was on board to direct the film, then got replaced with Rob Edwards, who previously helped write the screenplay for Treasure Planet, so in theory he's my f***ing hero, but clearly something went wrong there. And despite the movie being in production since 2018, they only started voice recording in November 2024, which was a solid 5 months before the movie first premiered. Like, what? How? That has to be wrong, right? How does that even... forget it. Worst animated movie of the year.
$20,000.
Oh, no!
Vote for John
No.
is a vote for fun!
You know, I'm content to just leave it there, but I'm actually just kinda offended by this movie's existence. I love Roald Dahl. I used to read his books all the time as a kid, and I'm very happy that unlike a lot of popular authors, his books have received a lot of high quality film adaptations. There's a couple of bad ones here and there, sure, but the Twits... The Twits. I don't use the term offensively awful, like, at all, but as someone who read this book a lot as a kid, I struggle to find anything remotely enjoyable about this. For one thing, I think if you take a Roald Dahl story and Americanize it to the point that it's completely unrecognizable, you should be put in a gulag. It doesn't work. With full respect and also full offense intended to my American viewers, keep your fucking Yankee hands off Roald Dahl. You cannot make it work that way. But it's not just that the plot is different or the fact that I find it deeply cringe-inducing hearing American voices in this story. The story just isn't good. It retains some of the original book's identity, but the moment they shifted the focus to these stupid kids, I just mentally checked out. A good thing too, because the film is also painfully unfunny, as was previously highlighted. I still can't get over the fact this is Rexplode. Jason Mantzoukas really be doing anything at this point. My entire goddamn ass, dickhead. I would only recommend this to someone on the condition of, once you finish the movie, rewatch Fantastic Mr. Fox about 3 times in a row just to cleanse a demon from your soul. guys, I'm about to blow your mind, but did you know that Rihanna is Smurfette? I can't believe in the big 2025 I found out even I can get tricked into watching a movie where James Corden is the protagonist. I definitely don't think this Smurfs movie is as bad as the other Smurfs movies, but that's not exactly a high bar to clear. Like, wow, the dog shit on the carpet this time as opposed to my bed. No idea why they decided this had to be a live-action hybrid movie where the Smurfs go to our world, because it has literally no bearing on the plot whatsoever. And said plot is both trying to do something completely new and off the rails with the Smurfs by turning them into these intergalactic peacekeepers or some shit, and yet is so unambitious about its ambition that you'll be fighting your closing eyelids by the halfway point. The Smurfs as a franchise is in dire need of some kind of reinvention. Not to completely change their identity or anything, but if Hollywood keeps insisting on making movies about these blue little shits, then something needs to change. The songs in this one weren't that bad. The new Rihanna song that premiered in the movie is actually fairly decent, and I can see the potential of the plot centering around a Smurf suffering from an identity crisis, but this was in dire need of another draft or two. They were onto something with this one, but decided to just phone it in anyway, and now the film only exists to launder money for Rihanna. Very bad movie with a lazy plot, but at least it doesn't give me nightmares. I will pay damn good money for someone to take The Witcher out of Netflix's hands, because I would like to actually watch something from this franchise someday without being constantly exposed to mid. And yes, I know The Witcher games are good, I've been meaning to play them for a while, but I'm a busy man, you hear? Leave me to my turn-based Yakuza games, damn it. I've also been meaning to read The Witcher books for a while now, and honestly, after watching this movie for the purpose of this video, I might just go and do that, because holy f***, this is boring. Apparently, according to longtime Witcher fans, it completely butchers the story it's trying to adapt to, and seeing that it has the same people behind it as the live-action Witcher series on Netflix, I'm not entirely surprised. There's not a whole lot I can talk about here as I'm not a Witcher fan yet, but I can say from an outsider's perspective that this was a very boring movie. And I'm certainly not the only person who pointed this out, but this story is just Disney's The Little Mermaid for adults, only stripped of all of its color and whimsy and fucking boring. I'm not even a Witcher fan, and I'm insulted on you guys' behalf. The animation ranges from fine to outright ugly, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm really getting tired of Netflix's quasi-anime art style you see in so many of their animated Netflix originals. It just looks so damn soulless and unappealing. They gave this treatment to Devil May Cry, and I wish that was the worst thing I could say about that series. I would rather talk about anything other than The Witcher Sirens of the Deep. Only watch this if you want your soul to be drained. One of the most boring movies of the year. Hey Cartoonchi, it's time for your government-mandated Loud House review. I hate you. I hate you and I'm going to kill you. I'm gonna speed through this as fast as possible. If you're a Loud House fan and you enjoyed this movie, more power to you, but I feel the same way I did about this movie as I did all the previous Loud House movies. Not even my inherent love of Christmas movies was enough to save this one for me. I'm a 21-year-old man. I accepted back when I was 16 that the Loud House was not for me. I find these movies incredibly by the numbers and unfunny. The only noteworthy scene in this is the part where Lincoln essentially gets fucking killed and turned into a gingerbread man and his family just stands there, most of them barely reacting, like it feels scientifically engineered to be turned into a DeviantArt reaction image. The one bit of praise I have is towards the visuals. It's nothing crazy obviously, but Loud House has always had an appealing art style that pops when some extra lighting is thrown into the mix. But other than that, not for me. I'm gonna be honest, I thought they just stopped making these after 2024 came and went without a new Wimpy Kid movie, and now I'm confused why they turned The Last Straw into a Christmas movie for some reason. Like really? The Last Straw? I thought the whole point of skipping The Last Straw back in 2023 was so you could adapt Cabin Fever and have that be the Christmas movie, because that actually makes logical sense. Are we about to see a Wimpy Kid cinematic universe comprised entirely of shoddy Christmas movies? Are Greg and Rowley gonna repair their friendship in the Ugly Truth adaptation via the miracle of Christmas? Pretty much every critique I had of the previous films applies here. This feels like it came off an assembly line and is so far from reaching the iconic heights and charms of the original live-action movies. The animation is a little better, I guess, but I will never understand why Jeff Kinney somehow sees these movies as improvements over his original books. Like, what are we doing, man? The Last Straw is rarely remembered by anyone as a major standout installment, so a film adaptation could have definitely done a lot to make it more memorable. At least that's what a Dog Days movie did. It combined Last Straw and Dog Days together into something that felt infinitely more memorable. I would not have minded it if they just did that again but animated this time. It certainly would have left more of an impression. Arguably the most divisive animated movie in some time, Fix has had an uphill battle ever since its first trailer forever stained its reputation. And yeah, the trailer is pretty bad, but the movie itself is slightly less bad. This is definitely not for me. I didn't like this one too much. It pains me to say that about something made by the GOAT Tartakovsky, but I struggle to comprehend that this was the R-rated traditionally animated movie he was working on for all those years. I can tolerate a lot of raunchy jokes, but Fix just felt way too crass despite some occasionally funny lines. The voice work all around is pretty excellent though, and as expected the animation is fantastic. I just wish I could see what others see in this without feeling a mix of apathy and disgust. The people that hate this movie though really f***ing hate it, and I do think the negative backlash towards it is super overblown. Leave it to the cartoon community to start harassing hardworking artists and crew members just because they don't like something. Never change, guys. Fucking babies. We've now reached the movies that aren't quite bad enough to be at the bottom of the list, but also aren't quite good enough to get anything other than a resounding meh. I would rather explain and get that out of the way now before my next inevitable death threat for calling something mid. All words are made up, but all words mean something, you know. Anyway, King of Kings is mid. The bar for Christian animated movies is usually not very high, and apologies if this strikes you as particularly soy, I am deeply atheistic, so there was no real chance I was going to be moved by this. If you f*** with Jesus like that though, then you're probably going to like this more than I did. It's a very safe movie about Jesus. Not much can go wrong, but there's not a whole lot that stands out to anyone who isn't a devout Christian. To King of Kings' credit, it's definitely one of the more respectable Christian animated movies I've seen, as in it clearly has its heart in the right place and is clearly sincere, made by actual good faith Christians instead of being borderline indoctrination. It's still a very heavy-handed movie, kinda hard to avoid that though, it is about Jesus after all, but it's not tasteless or acts like you're gonna be hung up and spanked in the center of the Hansman Hotel if you don't believe in God or his dead son. Okay, all jokes out the window, I really don't mean any offense to my Christian viewers because I know some of you exist, but if some of you can do me a solid and graduate from film school so we can start getting some actual f***ing quality Christian movies, that would be great. I'm sure a lot more people like me would convert to Christianity if we got a film adaptation of the Bible too. I'd be willing to worship this. Frankly, I expected more from a movie with the best title of all time, but instead I just got a rather middling comedy. I expected this one to be, like, insanely off the wall, but it's just kinda there. The artwork and animation are nice, and I respect how bold the movie is. There's the occasional funny line as well. There's a lot of stuff here that works, but is overall let down by most of the jokes coming from the big mouth department of, hey guys, we're rated R. Still, the movie clearly has its fans, so there's probably something I'm missing here. I do wish we had more loud and proud queer stories that weren't just loaded with sex jokes, but that's just me. I will say though, good luck trying to find a single good faith review of this movie on YouTube amid the sea of grifters who saw it as an easy target. When I first saw this movie being advertised, I could have sworn it had already been released like years prior. That's how homogenous the whole thing looked. You can usually take a glance at an animated film released these days and be able to quickly tell if it's a Netflix original or not. In Your Dreams failed to impress on basically every level, settling for the purest definition of average from its visuals to its story. A lot of people seem to like this movie, and I'll admit it's a very sweet story, and as someone who's always had trouble coping and keeping up with constant change in my life, I greatly value any story that teaches kids how to embrace and cope with change. It's quite an important lesson. I don't care how many of these stories feel the same, because it will eventually lead to a 5% decrease in the amount of screaming kids in the corner of my local Greg's. But apart from that, In Your Dreams plays it very safe. Definitely not bad, just very uninspired. Visually, it has some okay ideas, but it has this secondhand feel to it that I can't quite describe. I'm constantly put off by how uncanny the characters' faces look as well. It gives it a bargain bin visual quality that makes it blend in with all of the other Netflix original junk, and it was super distracting. I have a massive list of guilty pleasure dumb fun movies, and I'm tempted to add both Batman Ninja movies on here once I decide how I actually feel about them, because on one hand they are both utterly ridiculous, spectacle-driven action movies with literally no substance to speak of, and yet at the same time I have to be in a very particular mood to actually enjoy them compared to any other movie I have in my guilty pleasure list. Batman Ninja vs. Yakuza League is definitely a better film than the first, but not by a whole lot. These movies know exactly what they are and know exactly what to deliver on, so if you're down to watch a movie that begins with a fucking Yakuza tornado hitting Gotham City, then feel free to give it a shot. Stylistically, I do like how these movies look, but I just don't vibe of how they look in motion. The artwork is fantastic when looking at a still frame of the movie, but when it starts moving, it just looks kind of jank and ugly to me. The voice acting all around is pretty great too, at least in Japanese. I took one look at the English dub trailer and stopped watching when I realized Robin sounds like Fat Deku.
Japan is gone?
No offense to whoever this is, I just thought it was funny. They got Koichi Yamadera to voice Batman, I mean holy shit. Speaking of Yakuza, the most interesting thing about that is Koichi Yamadera voices Shun Akiyama in the Yakuza series, aka one of my favorite characters of all time. That was your government-mandated Yakuza reference for the video. Okay, obvious jokes out the way, can someone explain to me in detail what Search for SquarePants actually means? It doesn't describe the movie, like, at all, so I'm just wondering, like, what the f*** are they searching for? Congratulations on doing the first movie again, I guess. Okay, that's not very fair. Search for SquarePants does have a mostly different plot compared to the first movie involving the Flying Dutchman and him trying to manipulate SpongeBob into breaking his curse, so I will say giving each SpongeBob movie their government-mandated go-to-the-surface moment lost its luster like 3 to 4 movies ago, but despite the differences in events, the actual purpose of the narrative as well as the themes are identical to the first movie. SpongeBob tries to prove that he's a man, and then ends the movie having accepted the more positive outlook on his masculinity, embracing that, and then defying the expectations of toxic masculinity placed on him by just being a pleasant little fella, you know, like a goofy goober, if you will. Search for SquarePants does the exact same thing by having SpongeBob try and become a swashbuckler to prove that he's a quote-unquote big guy, whatever that means. I swear they paid Ice Spice to make that song years ago and just kept it under wraps until they had finished the script, because every instance of the phrase big guy used throughout this movie feels very shoehorned and unnatural. Either that or they were completely aware they were borrowing the main plot from the first movie and didn't want to be too on the nose about calling SpongeBob a man. I'm sorry if I'm being too negative and cynical here. In actuality, the movie really isn't that bad. In fact, I found the first half of the film to be fun and fairly amusing at times. A good amount of the jokes here do feel like classic SpongeBob, but despite the film's short runtime, it quickly overstays its welcome for me and just got irritating after a while. I do like how they focused a lot on SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs' friendship. In fact, this might be the best Mr. Krabs has been written in years, and I like the involvement of the Flying Dutchman, and Mark Hamill does a very good job of voicing him, and the animation was fine, I guess. There are specific moments that stood out, but I really don't get why they couldn't have gone for a Sponge on the Run look again. That's how you translate SpongeBob into 3D as far as I'm concerned, but overall I found Search for SquarePants to be a very mixed experience. Not one that I would put off rewatching at some point, but it failed to leave much of a lasting impression. This is like the one movie on this list I had to actually go back and rewatch because I remembered next to all about Elio, which isn't to say the movie is bad. I actually think it's fine at worst and decent at best, but unfortunately being just decent doesn't result in a satisfying viewing experience when it comes to Pixar, and specifically Pixar. Elio is actually quite a funny movie. I found a lot of the jokes pretty funny, and I found Elio himself to be a pretty endearing lead, and there are scattered moments throughout the film that actually work quite well in isolation. Hell, the final act of Elio has the potential to be one of the most downright epic things Pixar have ever made, with a ton of legitimately fantastic moments that almost had me buy into the hype of the finale. The problem is that the film's plot doesn't do enough to make these moments of brilliance feel truly earned. The overall plot is quite by the numbers and super predictable. Not enough to bore me, but enough to where I didn't really care what was happening for like half the movie. I debated walking out the theater at the midpoint because nothing was really clicking with me and I had a lot to do that day. Finding out that a lot of the film's original plot was cut was not surprising. I'm glad I stuck around though, because that final act does genuinely carry the whole film. The only other thing that bothered me was the film's art direction, which, yeah, I know it's not a very brave take to dislike how Elio looks. I even made a whole video about the discourse surrounding the film's visuals, but I really can't stress enough how unappealing I found the character designs in this movie, and I'm not just talking about herder beanmouth. I mean, a lot of the alien designs themselves are also quite lacking. I do want Pixar to keep experimenting with different art styles, that's not the problem, but I feel they need to do more than just putting cartoonier character designs in semi-realistic environments. It only makes the initial complaints about the art direction of their more realistic looking films more apparent. Okay, finally, we're getting to the movies I actually enjoyed for the most part. After the absolute travesty that was the Sandy Cheeks movie, expectations for the next Netflix exclusive SpongeBob movie were understandably not very high, and while I still have my worries about the fact we're getting yearly SpongeBob movies that are clearly being made on the cheap, the Plankton movie defied all the odds by actually being a solid and fun movie with something actually meaningful to say about Plankton as a character. I already went over this movie in my video reviewing all the SpongeBob movies earlier this year, but having Mr. Lawrence himself write a whole movie about a character he's voiced for over 25 years was definitely the right call, and it absolutely shows. The film is a wonderfully charming and surprisingly sweet character study that fundamentally understands and respects Plankton and everything that makes him tick. I know that people get really pissy when SpongeBob starts retconning character backstories, but as long as they're as good as this, I don't see why people need to get so up in arms about it. You can feel this movie was written with genuine love for the character, and the fact this is the first SpongeBob movie ever that actually gets the audience to view an established character in an entirely different light and doesn't just reset everything back to the status quo by the end is really worth praising in my opinion. Too many people write this movie off because it's a Netflix movie made on the cheap that released after one of the worst installments in the franchise, and it's a shame given how Plankton the movie is probably one of the best things to come out of SpongeBob since the first movie. ACAB means... ACAB means all. After how catastrophic 2024 was for DreamWorks, with the only exception being The Wild Robot, it's great to see them rebound this year with Dogman and Bad Guys 2. We don't talk about the rats in the corner. In Dogman's case, I definitely didn't love the film as much as others did, and I'm also not as familiar with the Dogman books as I am with Captain Underpants. By the time Dogman was first being published, I had much more grown-up preteen things to focus on, such as depression, but I still got a kick out of this. It's aimed at a much younger crowd than DreamWorks usually aims for, but it's not super try-hard about trying to appease young kids, and has a good enough joke per minute ratio that keeps it frequently funny and entertaining. It's so friggin' charming too, especially the visuals. Nothing mind-blowing or anything, but I took one look at a Dogman book for reference, and it's literally just a pitch-perfect adaptation from a visual standpoint. A very cute movie. I wouldn't really watch it again unless I had very little to do, or if I had to give my little sister something to look at for a bit, but it's painless, it's fun, it's very funny, not much went wrong here. Well, I'll f***ing be. I never thought when I saw this movie was in production that it would end up being the 2020's equivalent to Frozen, but here we are, I guess. Hell, I think it's pretty much eclipsed Frozen, actually, which is something I didn't even think was possible. K-Pop Demon Hunters is a movie that I definitely didn't love as much as other people did, but I still think this is a solid and very enjoyable film. When I first saw it, I just thought it was kinda okay, but it's crazy how much more I find to like about this film every time I rewatch it. It goes without saying, but the music is fantastic. I have still not gotten tired of Golden despite how much it plays on the radio every single day. I didn't used to listen to K-pop much before this movie, so if there's one thing I'm thankful for, it's for finally getting me out of my musical comfort zone of Blink, Kendrick, and Sinatra. The animation absolutely rocks too. I know a lot of people have tried to start some contrarian revolution against this movie when it got too popular by claiming it was over-animated, but frankly, I think you're f***ing crazy if your first thought upon seeing this is to start writing think pieces about how the West has fallen. The plot's nothing you haven't seen before, but that really doesn't matter. If you're going into this with the expectation that just because it's super popular that it has to be a masterpiece, then you've already set yourself up for disappointments. People forget that more often than not, critically acclaimed masterpieces are typically not super popular with general audiences. There's only a handful of exceptions. Sometimes all you need is a rock-solid animated flick with some good tunes to be able to capture the hearts of billions of people around the world. Hating stuff for being popular will always be cringe, but intentionally setting yourself up to be disappointed by a film called K-Pop Demon Hunters not being a masterpiece doesn't mean the movie isn't worthy of its popularity. I guess at the end of the day, I'm saying you guys need to lock the f*** in, because if I don't tell you that, then who knows what kind of dumb bullshit I'm gonna see in my feed tomorrow. Thank God I can finally maintain my agenda of DreamWorks' sequels being unequivocally goated without someone giving me a big blue side-eye. While not exactly a substantial step up, Bad Guys 2 offers a more bombastic and more enjoyable experience than the first movie, even if at the end of the day it's hard to pick a clear favorite. I wish Bad Guys 2 focused more on the idea of tackling how difficult it is for criminals to reintegrate back into society. They were really onto something with that, and it's a shame they don't go super in depth with it. Would have made for a genuinely surprising narrative with some balls on it. What we actually get is still good, but man, imagine if this was the Bad Guys equivalent to Kung Fu Panda 2 in terms of increasing the scope of thematic substance while still keeping everything that makes the Bad Guys so damn charming. That would have been something to behold. Bad Guys 2 ups the ante, ups the action, ups the stakes, to the point where you can have a legitimately interesting debate over which movie is better. I think the first movie had a better story, at least it was a cleaner one, even if the twists were very predictable, but I'd definitely watch Bad Guys 2 again over the original just from how much more fun it is in comparison. Holy shit, another animated sequel that's debatably better than the original, and a Disney movie no less. What devilish deal was struck to make Zootopia 2 this damn good, this great even? I was shocked at how much I enjoyed Zootopia 2. I think it's better than the original, which I wasn't exactly the biggest fan of, still a good time, just, you know. If you want to know how little my faith in this movie was, I skipped theaters entirely and just grabbed a cam rip like I do for most Disney movies nowadays, because frankly they don't deserve my money. And also, I was getting Moana 2 flashbacks from the initial teaser and I kinda just didn't watch the other trailers, my bad. Pretty much everything here is executed so much better than it was in the first movie, especially the core message and themes. Zootopia 1 was a very thoughtful movie, however nearly every bit of dialogue was super preachy, no one talked like an actual person, and the core metaphor the whole story was built around felt like a stack of cards the moment it was applied to reality. Zootopia 2 was like Zootopia 1 if it actually locked in. It's a lot less preachy and keeps its message super simple, but still thoughtful and applicable to reality without raising a few eyebrows. It's a much smarter movie than the first in many areas. I also found it a lot funnier too, which is worth highlighting because Disney have been kinda slacking in that department recently. The story is just much better too, building off the ending of the first movie in a way that makes sense. It features a third act breakup and a twist villain that don't make me roll my fucking eyes. Two of my most hated tropes in storytelling, especially Disney movies, and they execute them near flawlessly. My jaw was on the floor. If you're on the Disney hate train, which I can't exactly blame you for, I recommend you still give Zootopia 2 a shot. It's a surprisingly great movie, and I'm hoping that future Disney movies lock in like this going forward. I mentally cannot handle another Strange World. After getting incredibly depressed with how very few exceptional animated movies there were this year, Lost in Starlight was the first movie I actively sought out of desperation for something I would genuinely love. And well, I wouldn't say I loved it, but I still thought this was a great time. It's a love story first and foremost, and the armor around my heart is badly eroded over time, so the movie hooked me on that immediately. The animation is absolutely stunning, capturing so many intricate little details and facial expressions and having such a warm and vibrant color palette that sells the tone of the film perfectly. This is such a cozy, heart-lifting movie and one of the most believable romance stories I've watched in some time, man. I don't know what it is about romance that's so hard to get right for so many people. That might be my inner asexual coming out, I don't know. But this is how you do it, man. In fact, what the hell are you doing listening to me? Go watch Lost in Starlight and try not to feel your heart grow freeze sizes by the end. You can't. It's impossible. It simply can't be done. You know, even though I've now watched both Nezha movies, I still keep referring to Inside Out 2 as the highest grossing animated movie of all time, and I don't know why. I guess that's my inner cracker coming out, I don't know. But yeah, if you haven't watched Nezha 2, the one thing you probably know about it is... And despite this, no one ever talks about the movie outside of China and that one Shea Frillis video, which is a damn shame because this ended up being one of the best movies I've seen all year, period. Honestly, my Letterboxd review sums it up. My words can't do it justice, and I would rather this movie isn't spoiled for you. Go watch Nezha 1, it's a good movie but not gonna blow you away or anything, and then immediately jump into Nezha 2 and you'll spend the next couple of hours wishing you knew how to write peak fiction in Mandarin. Genuinely one of the most batshit epic in scale movies I've seen in a long time, and it's not just hype moments and aura either. It perfectly builds off the first one and tells a story I actually found emotionally gripping. I didn't even the first one that much. Like, yeah, it was a good movie, but also kind of rushed. Nezha 2 is like the most insane improvement from first movie to sequel I've ever seen. Holy shit, the action and animation in this movie is flat out incredible. So much ambition is just poured onto the screen. My ambition is all over the screen. Watch Nezha 2, seriously. You have no idea just how desperate I was to see this movie from the moment I first learned about it. Pretty much everything about it was telling me it was gonna have my dumbass captivated from beginning to end, and goddammit, that's exactly what happened. Little Amelie, or the character of Rain, is a truly exceptional and beautiful film and an absolute must-see, showing how the world looks through the eyes of a toddler, all the wonder, the excitement and curiosity, and gently and thoughtfully conveying the meaning of loss and life through this child's eyes without the movie ever feeling super heavy or intense, yet still almost managing to make me tear up at times. Very rarely do you get a movie that manages to convey such a wide range of complex emotions through a deceptively simple framework like this, and have it feel both natural and impactful. I don't need to gush too much about how the film looks because hopefully you all have eyes, but the art is so colorful and gorgeous, yet very easy on the eyes, and complements the gentle nature of the film so well. There are numerous standout sequences in this film that are fighting for their rightful place in my heart. I just... God damn, dude, art is powerful. Maybe I've just grown softer over the years, I don't know, but I absolutely adored this movie, and if it wasn't for my overwhelming bias, it would have easily snagged the top spot as the best animated movie of the year. But oh man. I am an incredibly biased person, and I do recognize that. However, my counterpoint, how can you not ejaculate while looking at this animation? Chainsaw Man the movie Reze Arc is the best animated movie I have seen all year, and I'll admit that a lot of that has to do with how much I love Chainsaw Man in general. I won't act like this is a movie you can just jump into without any knowledge of what Chainsaw Man is or how anything in this world works. It'll still be a fun time, guaranteed, but this is a movie that is mostly going to be enjoyed by fans of Chainsaw Man, either people who watched the first season of the anime or up to date with the manga. And since I am one of those people, I am naturally going to glaze. This is probably the most perfect way the Reze arc could have been adapted. It's such a lovingly done adaptation. As much as I still love season 1 of the anime and appreciate just how incredible it looks, it can certainly be argued that the way it looks is a bit too cinematic and realistic for Chainsaw Man. Outstanding work obviously, and I still loved it, but Reze arc has everything nailed down, from the colors to the action to the overall direction of each and every scene. The pool scene is just straight up one of the best things I have watched all year, and the added touches this movie gives to the meaning and the symbolism of this scene just elevates it to an entirely new level. This is the best looking animated movie of the year, and it is genuinely not even remotely close. I would rather take a sledgehammer to the skull than be a Mappa animator. Miss Anthropone, write that down. I could not imagine how hellish this must have been to work on, but dear God is it fantastic. Just look at this. Is this not fucking insane? I won't go into too many story details, as I'm aware not many people in my audience have watched or read Chainsaw Man, but I highly recommend you do, just so you can experience the absolute majesty that is this movie. Though as much as I am absolutely obsessed with Chainsaw Man and as biased as I am towards this movie, I think it says something that this ended up being the best animated film I saw this year. Not that it isn't absolutely deserving of being near the top, but the fact that Chainsaw Man movie was the best animated movie I saw this year really puts into perspective how very few truly exceptional animated movies actually released this year, especially when I first watched it, because I immediately had to go out and seek out some less mainstream options just to make this video less depressing. And there we go, the worst to best animated movies of 2025, at least all the ones I watched this year. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry this took longer to come out than usual. I was planning to release this before 2025 ended, but I suddenly contracted. It's been going around the UK this winter, and I got knocked on my ass for about a week. But during that downtime where I was completely unable to speak and moving around felt genuinely painful, I mustered up the courage to finally start working on what might be my biggest and most experimental passion project for this channel. Sort of like a practice run for the kind of videos I want to start making if I do decide to start a new channel someday. I don't want to give too much away, but if you're wondering why I have an abundance of Infinite Wealth footage playing in the background, then surely you can put the pieces together. Again, not saying what the video is, your guess could be completely wrong, and I don't know when it'll be ready. All I know is that it's a necessary step for me to take going forward. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a great new year. Take care. Oh my god, my throat hurts so much.
And you're choking up because you could never shoot.